All right, here we go on a Wednesday. You can get a hold of me on Twitter at Wisconsin_fam, at Wisconsin_FAM. Also, email address, wisconsinfamily1@gmail.com. I'll get to the Tom Brady and Adam Schefter, Aaron Rodgers stuff in a minute. But Rich Bisaccia had a second interview with the Colts for their head coaching job. And if he gets that job and the Packers lose him, I hope we all enjoyed our 1 year of halfway decent special teams play. The other thing, and this is going to drive me through the roof, if Bisaccia leaves, the Packers are going to be losing their best coach, losing their good coaches, while hanging on with white knuckles to the worst, like Joe Barry. Can't get rid of Joe Barry. Got to desperately hang on to him. But yet you lose good coaches like Bisaccia. Now, I get it. You're going to lose coaches. Good coaches get promoted. It's inevitable. Unless you were, of course, on Mike McCarthy's staff. And he wouldn't allow you to interview with other teams. But yeah, good coaches will move on. Understandable. But that combination of hanging on to the bad, the Joe Barrys of the world, and losing the good, which is inevitable, but it's not a good recipe for success. You always have to have the best. Other teams are doing it. The Vikings fired, what's his name? I'll have to look up his name. It's escaping me right now, but the Vikings fired their defensive coordinator at Donatel. Thank you. After a bad year. Packers hanging on with white knuckles to Joe Barry. All right, Tom Brady announcing his retirement. There's a lot being said today about that. Most of it is just people repeating the same thing, so I won't bore you with that. I'll just give you my quick thoughts on him. I think that he is the best football player who has ever put on a uniform. I think he's the best quarterback of all time. You can agree or disagree on that, but that's my thoughts on him. Everyone talks about what a great leader he was, the relationships he formed with guys in the locker room. Ultra competitive guy. Football was everything. He always took what was there, did whatever needed to be done to win, whether that be pass the ball 80% of the time or run the ball 80% of the plays. He was willing to do what needed to be done to win. In the last few years, especially this past season, I think it was pretty clear that he had gone backwards as far as his skill on the field. I mean, you watch Rodgers, and some say it was the broken thumb. Some think he's getting washed up. Whatever you want to attribute it to, doesn't matter. Rodgers had an off year, but he looked way better than Brady. Brady looked like he could hardly complete a pass. Rodgers was still able to complete most of his passes. Made some amazing plays along the way, too. Clearly wasn't Rodgers' best season, but, Brady just looked like he was washed up. It was a different look. But I do appreciate the career that Brady had. Enjoyed watching it all unfold right in front of us since the early 2000s through now. That's a long time. And the thing with Brady, he didn't or doesn't have the most talent in the world. Somebody like Rodgers clearly has more talent. I mean, Brady was always deadly accurate. Never had a cannon for an arm. It wasn't bad, but he is no athletic freak. Accurate arm, good arm. But I think it was that leadership and that will to win and do whatever you needed to do to get that win and to win Super Bowls. That along with the pinpoint accuracy that I think he had for most of his career. By the way, willing to play within a system. That's always the knock on him, right? Everyone's, wow, Tom Brady's just a system quarterback. Well, I wish Aaron Rodgers was a system quarterback. I wish he would have played these last 3-4 years in the Matt LaFleur system, actually run it. Because you know what? Brock Purdy plays within a similar system. He goes to the NFC Championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo plays within that system, beats Aaron Rodgers multiple times in the playoffs. Jared Goff plays within that system, goes to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff. I wish Rodgers would play within that. I wish Rodgers would be a system quarterback. That would be fantastic. Because if these guys, the Purdy's and the Garoppolos and just all, I mean, these guys who stay in the system, if they can do it, imagine how much better Rodgers would be able to do it than they are. Okay, Adam Schefter. I think he's got some kind of Aaron Rodgers quota that he needs to fill on a weekly basis. And he posted an article over this past weekend on ESPN, and again, there's nothing new. It's like when the Rodgers talk starts to kind of calm down, ESPN or Schefter has to throw some gas on the fire. So he writes on ESPN, and again, remember, none of this is new news or breaking information. He writes, an offseason trade of Aaron Rodgers remains an option for the Green Bay Packers for a variety of reasons, league sources told ESPN. A scenario that once seemed unthinkable, a Rodgers trade could be driven by financial reasons, the state of the Packers franchise, and ultimately the feelings of the team and the star quarterback. He goes on, league sources believe the franchise prefers to move on from Rodgers, just as it once did with Brett Favre. Those sources also believe that Rodgers is well aware of the Packers' feelings on the situation. All right, so league sources believe. So these league sources, they apparently don't sound like people within the Packers organization. So someone connected to the NFL thinks that the Packers would prefer to move on from Rodgers. Again, this isn't any kind of stunning report. Now, if he would have said people in the Packers front office want to move on from Rodgers, now that's something to take a look at. But league sources? And these league sources, they don't know. They believe. They think. They tend to believe. They think that the Packers would like to move on from Rodgers. Sounds like a whole bunch of speculation to me. And no new news. Now, sometimes media, sports and otherwise, create stories so that they can talk about them. So the other story that was circulating over the weekend was the Romeo Doubs interview where he said that he never hung out with Rodgers outside of football. And, I don't know how many people really actually care. No, I'm talking about, I don't know what it's like nationally. I'm talking about within the Packer fan base. I don't know how many people really actually care if Rodgers is going to dinner and bowling with his teammates. The thing that upsets Packer fans is that Rodgers doesn't show up for non-mandatory things in the offseason, things like that. It's not mandatory, so obviously he doesn't have to go. But for the $60 million per year, you'd like to see him there. Especially when you have these rookies and Rodgers seems to complicate the offense, not run the LaFleur offense. So you got rookies. Rodgers makes it more complicated. And the thing that really gets you, and I think really bothers Packer fans, is when Rodgers starts lighting the receivers up on the field in front of everyone for doing the wrong thing while he didn't bother showing up for the offseason workouts. Yeah, and it's true, Rodgers doesn't need the extra experience, but he needs that time with the receivers. Instead, he's got Cobb show up and coach him. I mean, you want your $60 million per year guy to be all in, showing up at everything. And speaking of the quarterback situation, I wanted to talk about Jordan Love for just a minute. There are a few items on the agenda today as far as he goes. First of all, I think a lot of people misunderstand my position on the Rodgers topic as well as Love. I've seen people suggest that I think Jordan Love is going to be a great quarterback. I've never said that. I don't believe that Love is the cure to all of the Green Bay Packer problems. I don't know what Jordan Love is going to be. No one does. I mean, the Packers, we hope, know what he is. At least. I don't know what he is. You don't know what he is. Media doesn't know what he is. But we hope that the Packers at least do. But we don't know. But we do know one thing. And that is that Aaron Rodgers is not the key to going to the Super Bowl. He's not the key that unlocks that door. It's been 12 years, and he's been part of the reason why the Packers haven't went back to the big game. I also know that the Packers could get a pretty big bundle in a trade for him. But to go back to Love for a second, I said I don't know what he's going to be. No one does. But one of the dumbest things that I keep seeing and hearing is people saying Jordan Love isn't going to be a great quarterback because you just aren't going to get 3 great Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. And that's completely illogical thinking. What does Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have to do with Jordan Love's career? Will Love be a Hall of Fame quarterback? Don't know. I mean, I'd say probably not. Not because Rodgers and Favre are and were there before him, but it's simply because most quarterbacks just aren't Hall of Fame quarterbacks. There aren't that many great players out there. But it doesn't doom Love's career just because 2 good quarterbacks came before him. Love's career hinges on one thing, and that's Love, and his coaches and trainers. Okay, so 3 things. I mean, by this logic, the Bears should have had a Hall of Fame quarterback by now. The Browns, too. I mean, aren't they due after so many bad years of horrible quarterback play after horrible quarterback play? I mean, the odds of Love being a Hall of Fame quarterback are the same as anyone else's. And those odds are not affected at all for Love as an individual because of Favre or Rodgers. And I only say that because if you don't like Love or you've seen him and you don't think he's going to be any good, that's fine. That's fair enough. I don't know if he's going to be any good or not. But at least stick to reality on why you don't like the guy. Don't bury him simply because the Packers have had back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And you just don't think it's possible to get a 3rd in a row. But getting a 3rd in a row is just as probable as getting the first one. And it's not probable. It's not probable to have 1. It's not probable to have 2. It's not probable to have 3. It's not about stringing them in a row. It's about finding a good quarterback, which is the hard thing to do. All right, going to take a short break. We'll have some reaction from Twitter. A few things I want to go over from there. That's coming up next.